I damn near launched myself across the desk when my boss, that smug bastard, leaned in and said it. "Nice secretary you got there," he sneered. "I know she's your wife and all, but the way she's been eyeing me lately. Don't get mad if something happens, buddy." Honestly, I couldn't blame her. He winked. Winked. Like we were in on some sick joke together. Then he strolled out of my office like he owned the goddamn world. I sat there, fists clenched, heart pounding, fighting every instinct to chase him down and beat that smirk off his face. My knuckles went white around the pen I'd been holding, cheap company plastic that snapped in half, leaking blue ink across my palm like a busted vein. Richard fucking Campbell. Regional Director. Self-proclaimed ladies' man with his silver-streaked hair, Italian suits, and a Rolex that probably cost more than my car. The type of asshole who brags about his golf handicap while eyeing the waitress at business lunches. It wasn't the first comment he'd made. They'd been coming more frequently, little jabs, suggestive remarks, always when nobody else was around. Always with that same shit-eating grin that made me want to rearrange his perfect veneers with a stapler. "Your wife's looking especially fuckable today, don't you think?" Or, "Those legs of hers, bet they look good wrapped around something other than a desk chair." Each time, I'd swallowed my rage. 8 years at this company. I was 2 promotions away from where I wanted to be. One wrong move, one moment of giving the bastard what he deserved, and I'd be cleaning out my desk by sundown. So I took it. Like a coward. Like a fucking doormat. It was just talk, right? Sick fantasy from a bloated old man too full of himself. My wife loved me. She wasn't some cheap trophy throwing herself at whatever walked by. Brooke and I had been married for 5 years. College sweethearts. She'd followed me to this shithole town when I got the job offer, put her own career on hold. When the company needed a new executive assistant 6 months ago, I'd pulled strings to get her interviewed. I thought I was doing something good, giving her a way in, a foot in the door at a decent company. Now I wondered if I'd just delivered her straight to the wolves. To one wolf in particular. She'd been different lately. Coming home late. New clothes. New perfume that smelled like money and sex. I'd told myself it was just her getting used to the corporate world, finding her footing. Told myself the distance between us was temporary. Work stress. Nothing more. Or so I thought. I yanked the office door open, ready to tell him exactly where he could shove his twisted little daydreams. And froze. Right there, in the middle of the hallway, under the buzzing fluorescent lights, my wife was wrapped up with him. His greasy hand grabbing her waist. His fat mouth crushed against hers. And her. She wasn't fighting. Wasn't pulling away. She stood there, soaking it up, like some pathetic groupie backstage at a has-been rock concert. Time slowed to a crawl. I could see every detail with sickening clarity. The way her fingers gripped his expensive lapels. The way his hand slid down to cup her ass, my wife's ass, like he owned it. The wet sound when their lips finally parted. The flush on her cheeks. The hungry look in both their eyes that told me this wasn't the first time. The whole damn office saw it. Every last one of them. Watching. Whispering. Judging. Janet from accounting, mouth hanging open. The IT guys frozen mid-conversation. The cleaning lady with her cart, paused like someone had hit a fucking pause button on the universe. 20 people, at least, witnessing my humiliation in 4K resolution. Pain hit first. Like a sledgehammer to the chest. A physical, crushing pain that made it hard to breathe. Then came rage. Not hot. Cold. Crystallizing in my veins like ice. Then something colder. Sharper. Humiliation. The kind that burns your face. Makes your ears ring. Makes you feel small and pathetic and worthless all at once. I didn't scream. Didn't make a scene. I just watched for a few more seconds, long enough to burn the image into my skull forever, and then I shut the door. Calm. Quiet. Dead inside. I walked back to my desk on legs I couldn't feel. Sat down. Stared at the framed photo of Brooke and me on our honeymoon. Her smile. Her eyes. All lies. I turned the frame face down with a soft click that finalized something inside me. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I answered emails. Made a call to a client. Shuffled papers around my desk like a robot going through the motions. Inside, I was screaming. Inside, I was putting my fist through walls. But outside, cool as a cucumber. Already plotting. When Brooke finally knocked and entered my office, her lipstick was freshly applied. Hair smoothed down. But she couldn't hide the guilty flush on her neck or the way her eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. "Hey babe, do you want to grab lunch? I was thinking that new Thai place." Her voice was casual. Too casual. Like she hadn't just had our boss's tongue down her throat. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd built my life around. The woman who'd promised forever. Now a stranger wearing my wife's face. "Not hungry," I said, voice flat. "Got too much work." Her eyes flickered to mine, searching for something. Did I know? Had I seen? I gave her nothing. "Oh, okay. I'll just grab something from the cafeteria then." She hesitated at the door. "Everything all right?" I smiled. A cold, dead smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Everything's perfect." That's when the real work began. I left work early that day. Told my supervisor I was feeling sick. It wasn't a lie. I drove home in a fog, the same 5 seconds of their kiss playing on loop in my brain like a torture device. Our apartment, the one we'd scrimped and saved for, the one with the view of the park that Brooke had fallen in love with, felt like a museum of lies. Photos of us on every wall. Her clothes mixed with mine in the closet. Her fancy shampoo in our shower. Evidence of a life together that was nothing but a fucking joke. I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and drank it standing in the kitchen. Then another. The burn felt good. Real. The only real thing in a world gone sideways. When the alcohol hit my bloodstream, I started thinking clearly. Rage is a useless emotion unless you channel it. Unless you use it as fuel. I opened my laptop and started digging. First, I started gathering dirt. My boss, Mr. Untouchable. Turns out he wasn't as bulletproof as he thought. Richard Campbell had a reputation as a company golden boy. 20 years at the firm. Brought in millions in contracts. Had the board wrapped around his finger. But nobody stays clean for 2 decades in corporate America. Nobody. I started small. Social media. Financial records that were public. Old news articles. Then I went deeper. Called in favors from a buddy who worked in IT security. Not technically legal, what he did for me, but I didn't care anymore. The law, morality, ethics, all that shit went out the window the moment I saw my wife's tongue in another man's mouth. It took 3 days of obsessive digging. 3 days of barely eating, barely sleeping. 3 days of coming home to an increasingly concerned Brooke, who kept asking what was wrong, why I was distant, if we needed to talk about something. The fucking audacity. I gave her nothing but grunts and excuses about work stress. On the 4th day, I struck gold. Some shady offshore accounts. Money moving in patterns that didn't make sense for a salaried executive. Dates that corresponded with certain contract signings. A digital trail that stank of kickbacks and bribes. Then came the photos. My IT buddy hit the jackpot, accessing Campbell's cloud storage. Apparently, the arrogant prick never considered that someone might crack his passwords. Pictures from corporate retreats and private parties. Campbell with girls who looked barely legal, sitting on his lap, his hands where they shouldn't be. Some very underage-looking friends at corporate parties. But the real prize? A folder labeled Personal Insurance. In it, videos and audio recordings of Campbell with various executives from client companies. Men who were very publicly heterosexual and married, caught in compromising positions. Men who would lose everything if these recordings got out. Blackmail material. The sick fuck was blackmailing clients for contracts. A few carefully recorded conversations about bribes he thought no one was hearing completed the picture of a man who wasn't just an asshole, he was a criminal. A predator. Meanwhile, my wife, let's call her Brooke, was busy daydreaming about a promotion she thought was coming. She'd started dropping hints at dinner. How Campbell had mentioned she might be ready for more responsibility. How there was talk of restructuring the executive support team. How she might need a new wardrobe soon for a different role. New job title. New office. New car. She had it all mapped out in that empty head of hers. She had no clue the rug was about to be ripped out from under both their rotten feet. I watched her preen in the mirror before work each morning. Watched her text on her phone with a secret smile, quickly switching screens whenever I walked by. Watched her stay late at the office for training sessions that I now knew were nothing but fuck sessions in Campbell's corner office after everyone had gone home. Each lie, each deception, each fake smile she gave me, they all became kindling for the fire building inside me. Not hot rage anymore. Something colder. More focused. More dangerous. At night, I lay next to her in bed, listening to her breathing, wondering how many times she'd fucked him. Wondering if she moaned the same way for him as she did for me. Wondering if she laughed about me with him afterward. The chump. The stepping stone. The disposable husband. I started recording our conversations. Started taking photos of her coming and going from Campbell's office. Started building my own insurance policy. A week later, during the company's annual shareholder meeting, I sent a little anonymous package to every board member and major investor. The meeting was being held at the Grand Hyatt downtown. Everyone who mattered in the company would be there. Campbell was scheduled to give a presentation on ethical leadership in modern business. The fucking irony could have choked a horse. I'd spent the weekend putting together my evidence. Photos. Recordings. Bank statements. Everything tied neatly together in a perfect storm. I created an encrypted email account and attached a comprehensive document detailing every dirty deal, every blackmail victim, every underage girl. 10 minutes before Campbell was due to speak, I hit send on 12 separate emails to the board members and top investors. Subject line: what Richard Campbell doesn't want you to know. Then I sat back in my chair in the conference room, calm as Hindu cow, and watched the chaos unfold. At first, nothing happened. Campbell strutted to the podium, adjusting his designer tie, flashing that $1,000,000 smile. Brooke sat in the front row, looking up at him with barely disguised worship, her legs crossed at an angle that made sure he got a good view up her skirt. Then I saw the first board member check his phone. His face went ashen. He leaned over to whisper to the woman next to him. She checked her phone. Same reaction. Like dominoes, one by one, the important people in the room started looking at their devices. Looking at Campbell. Looking horrified. Campbell was 5 minutes into his bullshit speech about integrity when Martin Hoffman, the company chairman, walked onto the stage and whispered something in his ear. I'll never forget how Campbell's face changed. How the blood drained from it. How his eyes darted around the room like a cornered animal's. How they landed, finally, on me, and the small, knowing smile I couldn't hold back. By lunchtime, my boss was being escorted out by security, his face white as a ghost. They didn't make a scene in the meeting room. Too many investors present. Too much potential for public embarrassment. Instead, Campbell was quietly led to a side room. I watched through the glass walls as men in expensive suits shouted at him. As he first denied, then raged, then pleaded. When he emerged an hour later, flanked by 2 security guards carrying his belongings in a cardboard box, he looked 20 years older. Defeated. Destroyed. Brooke tried to approach him. Tried to ask what was happening. One of the security guards blocked her path, told her to return to her desk and wait for further instructions. The confusion on her face was priceless. The dawning horror as she realized something catastrophic had happened to her meal ticket. By dinner, the company's stock had tanked. Lawsuits were flying. His career was over, not rebuild it in 5 years, over. The news hit the local business press by mid-afternoon. By evening, it had gone national. Executive fired amid allegations of bribery and sexual misconduct. Campbell's face plastered across every business news site, every local TV station. The company was in damage control mode. Press releases about zero tolerance and full cooperation with authorities. Empty platitudes from a board that had looked the other way for years, until they couldn't anymore. And Brooke? Poor Brooke. Turns out sleeping your way up doesn't work so well when the man you're screwing is getting dragged out in handcuffs. She was called into HR before the end of the day. I wasn't in the room, but I didn't need to be. I could picture it perfectly, Brooke, teary-eyed and protesting her innocence. The HR director, stone-faced, showing her the evidence. The emails between her and Campbell. The after-hours keycard access records. The photos I'd anonymously provided of them entering and exiting hotels on company time. When she came to my office afterward, her eyes were red and swollen. Her makeup smeared. They fired me, she whispered, voice cracking. They said I was involved with Richard. That I knew about the bribes. That I helped him cover it up. I looked at her with what I hoped appeared to be shock. What? That's insane. Why would they think that? Someone sent them pictures. Emails. She collapsed into the chair across from my desk. They said they have to let me go to protect the company's reputation. I reached across and took her hand. Squeezed it gently. Played the concerned husband while inside I was laughing. We'll figure this out, baby. We'll fight it. She lost her job. Lost her so-called friends. Lost the shiny future she sold herself out for. The next few days were enlightening. Brooke's phone, once constantly buzzing with texts and calls, went silent. The work friends who used to invite her to happy hours suddenly had no time for the disgraced assistant of a criminal executive. The same people who had smiled to her face now whispered about her behind her back. She cried. A lot. Kept insisting she'd been manipulated by Campbell. That she'd made a terrible mistake, but hadn't known about his illegal activities. That she still loved me. That she was so sorry. I played along. Held her while she sobbed. Told her we'd get through this together. All while a cold satisfaction spread through me like slow-acting poison. At night, she'd reach for me in bed. Desperate for connection. For forgiveness. For validation that she wasn't the whore everyone now thought she was. I'd let her touch me. Let her try to fuck her way back into my good graces. Then I'd roll over and tell her I was too tired, too stressed about what this meant for my own position at the company. The truth was, I couldn't stand the feel of her hands on me anymore. Couldn't look at her mouth without seeing it on his. Every inch of her body was contaminated. Ruined. A week after Campbell's firing, I was called into the chairman's office. Martin Hoffman sat behind his massive desk, looking exhausted. The company was in crisis mode. Stock prices plummeting. Clients jumping ship. Internal investigations turning up more dirt by the day. Davidson, he said, not bothering with pleasantries, we need to talk about your future here. I tensed, preparing for the worst. Had they somehow traced the information leak back to me? Instead, Hoffman sighed heavily. I'm going to be straight with you. This company is about to go through hell. Class action lawsuits. Criminal investigations. The works. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Good people. People who had nothing to do with Campbell's shit. He slid a folder across the desk to me. Inside was a severance package. 6 months' salary. Health benefits for a year. Glowing recommendation letters. This is the best we can do, Hoffman said. Take it and get out while you can. Before your name gets dragged into this mess by association. I stared at the offer. It was generous. More than generous. It was an escape hatch. What about my team? I asked, playing the concerned manager. Hoffman's face hardened. Most of them will be let go within the month. Budget cuts. Restructuring. You know how it goes. I nodded slowly, pretending to be reluctant. Can I have some time to think about it? 24 hours, he said. After that, the offer gets less sweet. I signed the papers the next morning. And me? I handed in my resignation with a smile, cashed my severance check, and drove off into a life they'll never be a part of again. The day I left that office was the last time I saw any of them. I didn't bother with goodbyes. Didn't attend the farewell happy hour some well-meaning colleague tried to organize. I cleaned out my desk, dropped my keycard with security, and walked out without looking back. Brooke was waiting at home, still shell-shocked from her own sudden unemployment. When I told her I'd been let go with a nice package, her face crumpled with relief. At least we have each other, she said, reaching for my hand. We can start over somewhere new. Together. I let her hold on to that delusion for exactly 3 more days. Long enough to move my severance money to a private account. Long enough to secure a rental apartment across town. Long enough to contact a divorce attorney and get the paperwork started. On the 4th day, I packed my bags while she was out job hunting. Left the framed photos. Left the wedding album. Left the bed where she'd betrayed me countless times. I did leave her a note. Short. To the point. I saw you with him that day in the hallway. I know everything. Don't try to contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. I didn't bother leaving a forwarding address. Didn't answer her frantic calls and texts. Didn't respond to the emails begging for another chance, for forgiveness, for a conversation. 2 months later, I watched from across the street as she moved out of our apartment. No longer able to afford the rent on her own, forced to crawl back to her parents in Ohio. She looked thinner. Older. Broken. I felt nothing. Campbell didn't fare much better. The criminal charges stuck. Securities fraud. Tax evasion. Sexual harassment. He took a plea deal to avoid maximum prison time, but still got 5 years in a minimum security facility. His wife, his real wife, not just his office plaything, divorced him and took him for everything he was worth. Last I heard, his adult children weren't speaking to him. The company limped along for another year before being acquired by a competitor for pennies on the dollar. Nearly everyone lost their jobs in the restructuring. Me. I moved 3 states away. Used my severance and savings to start a small consulting business. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. Nobody above me. Nobody to answer to. Nobody to betray me. Sometimes people ask if I regret how things went down. If I feel bad about all the collateral damage. All the innocent people who lost their livelihoods because of my revenge. I don't. Some people like to say revenge is bitter. Not me. It tasted sweet as hell.